they're predicting in 2018, Bitcoins will go for $10,000 to $25,000 a coin. Hey there, my friends, Tommy G here, and I'm really excited to share this information with you. The last 30 days, I've really been geeking out over the Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, and I really wish I would have paid attention to it earlier, but as we all do, we hear about something, we just kind of blow it off, you know, oh, that's just that internet monopoly money, whatever, until, you know, like a friend or somebody comes along that tells you, they're like, dude, check this out, you got to see this. Well, that's kind of what happened about 30 days ago for me, and I just like couldn't deny the evidence that I was shown. And then I went on a bit, you know, last 30 days I've been ravenous, digging up all this stuff on Google, YouTube, buying some of these big reports that go into the details of the Bitcoin and the cryptocurrencies so I could really understand it. And what I wanted to do for you first is there is an enormous amount of wealth that's going to be created through Bitcoin, especially in 2017 going forward, okay? So there's a lot of money to be made, but to do that, you got to understand how it is that you're making the money, and also there's going to be a lot of money that's protected, okay? So you'll see what all this means by the end of this, but I just want you, on this first video, we're going to kind of get the backstory and the foundation laid, and then we're going to move along to talk about exactly what you need to be doing to position yourself to benefit from the Bitcoin bubble that's happening right now going forward, because it's still in very much its infancy. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in and get straight into it. All right, so here we are. We're going to talk about the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency 101. We're going to start off with what exactly it is, why it matters, and then a brief introduction of how it will create incredible wealth. And then as we move along, though, we're going to get into the backstory with these three questions about, you know, why anything that has value is because it solves a problem, right? So we're going to talk about the problem that created the idea of cryptocurrencies. We're going to talk about the event, because there has to be, for value to happen, there has to be a problem, you know, that then births, typically there is an idea that then gets turned into a solution, and then that creates the value. All right, and with everything that we do, we're always exchanging value for money, right? And right now the Bitcoin value is worth way more than $1, so people are just throwing money at the Bitcoin because they want what the Bitcoin can do for them. All right, so let's get into why people are just, and big companies, big people, even nations are creating infrastructure that revolves around cryptocurrency and Bitcoins. So it is here to stay, and I'm going to kind of describe why that is on this video. All right, so let's move along. Before I get started, just know a little warning, the lingo is going to be a little weird. Okay, I'm going to talk about some stuff like blockchain, cryptocurrencies, Bitcoins, ICOs, different things like that, ledgers and stuff. Just know that the information, it will make a lot more sense the more I explain it, and the different prisms. I basically want to present the information to you kind of through a prism where, like, every time I'm going to turn it a couple different ways so that you can look at it, you know, and see it from different perspectives, right? I don't want to just give you one line of thought on Bitcoin, because that'd be a disservice to you. I'm going to give you different ways to look at it so that it clicks for you and it becomes clear what you need to do to make sure that you're benefiting from Bitcoin. All right, so first let's talk about what it is. Bitcoin is a form of cryptocurrency, okay? So what that means is, like, cryptocurrency is, you know, a coded money, basically. All right, so that means that a Bitcoin isn't like a coin that you put in your pocket, okay? It's a piece of code on the internet that has value, and we're going to talk about why that is on here and why it is so valuable. As much as one Bitcoin is worth $8,000 as of today, 11/20/17. Okay, And the reason the reason it's becoming so valuable is because it's safe, secure, decentralized. This is critical, which we'll talk about why. Currency that gives the individual, that means you and me, immense power over their wealth versus the banks and governments, okay? This has been a huge problem that we'll talk about in a second. It's built on a new technology called blockchain, okay? So far we got some new terms, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, and blockchain. Don't worry, we'll explain what they are soon. This is the key right here. This blockchain technology is the thing that's driving the value of the currency. And we'll talk about more of that in a little bit. Let's go on to our next key question we need to define here. So why does all this matter? Okay, why did Bitcoin matter? Well, the 2000 financial crisis told us that the banks can't be trusted. They're too big to fail. And when they do, that failure, that bill gets passed on to the consumer, which is me and you, and that sucks, all right? Since then, I'm going to tell you some of the backstory about other governments that have done the same thing, and the way that they've handled these collapses has been irresponsible, and it's of the handling of the currencies and lending, okay? It's just really, really frustrating, and don't be surprised by during this video, you're going to get pretty frustrated, pretty angry, but we'll end it with a happy thought, okay? Before we get into how that happened, let me let you know exactly how it is that in 2018, you can get a credible wealth, okay? Because you're already watching this video, getting knowledge on the Bitcoin, but the action is where the power is at, okay? Don't just take this information that I'm sending to you and ignore it, all right? If you implement what I tell you, you're setting yourself up for potential life-altering wealth. I'm talking about serious multi-million-dollar wealth, all right? I'll give you the story of a dude that spent $12 in Bitcoin and is now at 18 a millionaire, okay, from $12. And there's tons of other ways to duplicate that today, all right? So don't just brush off this info. I'll give you other examples that showed me a friend of mine that did over $200,000 in 15 days from understanding and acting on the crypto megatrend that's happening right now. So there's tons of wealth to be created because there's tons of value in the currency, but you gotta understand it, you gotta know how to use it, right? So, and of course, talking about money, results are not typical and it does require investments into cryptocurrencies, all right? So you do have to put some money up to duplicate this money, but you'll see that you can reduce your risk and maximize your profitability if you know how to do it correctly. So let's get back to that problem that we talked about. Why is Bitcoin and cryptocurrency so valuable today? Well, it all starts back in 1914 during World War I. The war needed funding, and the gold reserves, which that's what the dollar was based off of, like for every dollar that was out there, they had to have equivalent gold stored away to pay off debts. Like at any time, if a debt needed to be paid off, they could ask for gold in exchange for the money, right? Well, the gold standard was suspended, and printing money was freely unleashed, okay? So basically, the government was like, we don't have enough gold to fund the money that we need for the war, so let's just eliminate that rule and get what we want, right? Well, that got us through the war, but afterwards, this was the start of banks and governments getting susceptible to vulnerability and lack of accountability, all right? And after the war, the banks couldn't go back to the gold standard because there was too much cash in the marketplace. Also, a correlating event was in 1913, the Federal Reserve, which this is a public, all right, or it's like a privately owned bank to the public. It's not actually the government. The Federal Reserve is not the government. They just used a very clever name by calling it Federal Reserve because it has a government ring to it. But the Federal Reserve, it's a private bank, just like your local one down the street, it's just really, really big and very powerful, is given permission to print money as they see fit. This is huge and will play into accounts and later on. Let's keep going with the story with what happens next. Oops. So then in 1944, after some years of dealing with this gold standard being removed, there was the Brickwood Conference. I believe it was in Vermont. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on it. But Brickwood Conference made the U.S. dollar the new world reserve currency, meaning if you owe debt, it must be paid in U.S. dollars. And this was because at this conference, the U.S. argued that it had the most gold at the time and reasoned that the U.S. dollar was just as good as gold. So this helped while at this time the U.S. dollar was going down because it couldn't back the gold. So what they did was they just eliminated that rule and made the U.S. dollar the currency that was being measured on. All right. So all the other currencies had to pay their debts off with U.S. dollars. All right. Just stick with me here. It's all going to come to a full circle shortly with this little history and currency. Oops, hold on. So then a couple of years later, you can see there's like 30-year trends here. All right. You got 1914, 33, or not 33, 44, and now 71. So 30 years later, next generation of people are seeing like, hey, this is not working. So after years of printing a lot of money with no gold to back it, the dollar became devalued again. Nixon then struck a deal with the gold of the day, which was oil, which basically was with the Saudi government that promised to price all their oil in U.S. currency that would then increase the demand for the U.S. dollar in exchange for the U.S. would protect its oil fields with its military and also provide different benefits, stuff like that. So this was another bailout for printing too much money. So then we get to our 2008 crisis. Again, this one's a little bit more, this is about 30 plus years. Big bubble, right? The 2008 was the biggest economic malfunction since the Great Depression, all due to irresponsible practices of major banking institutions. And for the sake of time, if you go ahead and if you want to watch The Big Short, just to see how ridiculous this whole thing planned out, you will be able to get very detailed accounts of just how crazy this was. I didn't realize because in my world wasn't racked too hard from this, but this was a huge hit to so many people. All right. And whenever you watch the video, when you watch The Big Short, I think you can get it on Netflix or Amazon Prime right now. Just be warned, it will piss you off. Okay. You will watch that show and watch that movie and be like, holy shit, there's something needs to be done. And you're right, there should be something done because the solution to the 2008 problem was that the banks were too big to fail and the government stepped in to save the Lehman Brothers from failing and infused $700 billion into the system. Okay. This saved the bank. Let me show you what this did. Yeah. All right, so this saved the bank, but the rest of the world saw 30 million jobs lost, $16 trillion in financial wealth lost. This is people's retirement. So you've been busting your ass for 30, 40 years and you're about to retire, on your savings that, let's say your portfolio was at like $1 million. Well, overnight, you went down to $500,000 to retire on, while the bank, had their basic losses refunded with printed money. All right. Nobody was reprinting your money for the losses you had, but the banks got everything that they needed back. And that pisses you off. All right. It's the injustice at the highest level. And so we're not the only ones that think this, you or I. There's another guy, Satoshi, which you can read about in the white paper, that on November 1st, 2008, he published a study, a white paper. These are research papers that detail what his idea was to decentralize banks and let this injustice never happen again. You can Google Bitcoin white paper and get this link right here that will show you that full report. In this, the report proposed a new form of open source decentralized banking that would eliminate the middleman, the banks or governance, and protect the individual. This was essentially the birth of cryptocurrency, right? And that was in 2008. So cryptocurrency is not new. It's about 10 years old right now. So what triggered the insane value? Because for the longest time, it didn't really do anything. Well, Bitcoin saw slow adaptations, just like any other technology: cassette tapes, VHS, the microwave, CDs, DVDs, internet, MP3s, etc. People just didn't understand its value until there was a pressing need for it, okay? Or until there was early adopters that started using it and really showed everybody else that, like, wow, that's really convenient. One of those things was in 2013 when the Greek government was going crazy, right? What was happening, I didn't realize this till I was doing my homework on the crypto, but the Greek government was actually putting taxes and fees and limiting withdrawals. So basically, you go to work, you go do your 9 to 5, and then the bank tells you how much of that money you're allowed to access, how much you're allowed to spend. Oh, and they're going to take a certain percentage of it just because they're the bank and the government. It was just a bunch of really shitty stuff, okay? So the general public, okay, saw this as another injustice, and they needed a safe place to get their money out of the banks and into something safe, right? And this created an enormous value for Bitcoin and the blockchain technology. So what that meant was the Greek population in Greece and stuff like that, they were able to get their money out of the bank and then move it into Bitcoin, so that there was because Bitcoin is open source, there's nothing rules over it like the government. It eliminates the middleman, which I'll get into more details a little bit later on. But these were the events that triggered in history that have changed everything. Now, in 2017, what's been happening is that large government nations like Japan are recognizing the benefits of the blockchain technology. It saves time and resources by reducing the amount of human greed and error that comes with maintaining a fair and balanced ledger, okay? So with more and more people adapting to the technology, it drives up the value, all right? Now, why is it the best time to start paying attention to cryptocurrency right now? Well, today we are in the infancy of Bitcoin, all right? The prediction of the top level wizards of crypto space project that Bitcoins will exceed $500,000 to $1 million per coin in the next 10 years. Now, that's a bit of a mind bender, okay? Because we've always associated coins with like 1 cent, 5 cents, 25 cents. We don't think coins as like enormous $1 million things. Well, that's because we have to redefine, that's not what they are, okay? The coin, okay, is, like we said, it's cryptocurrency, and this one coin can actually be split, all right, into, I believe it's like 100 million different pieces of code. So that, like, even if this is worth 1 million, it's not like a dollar that can only be broken up into 100 cents, right? There's tons of little tiny bits of data that this can be broken down to that supports that crazy, because to have good currency, you have to have breakdown of all the different, the value system. It has to be fractured down into a certain level. And that's a little bit for another conversation, but this is very realistic. All right, this is a quote. Let me see. I got the source here. Just so you know, I'm not like blowing smoke up your butt. This is a quote from the article right here. If you Google Bitcoin worth 1 million, you can read all kinds of articles from many different sources that show this prediction happening very sooner than we think. So, for example, this dude, a member of PayPal's board of directors and the CEO of Bitcoin wallet Zappo, notably predicted that Bitcoin will hit 1 million within 10 years. Others have even gone so far to say that Bitcoin will eventually replace gold as the financial safe haven or become a major reserve currency. Okay, so for the longest time we had gold as the reserve currency. All right, and then 1914 came and they X'd gold as the reserve because they needed more money. In 1944 they made the US dollar the reserve currency, and then in 71 that we said, that got this value went down, but then we attached it to the oil field, and that helped bump the reserve currency. All right, so what they're saying is that instead of gold or the US dollar, eventually Bitcoin will become the major reserve currency because of the value that it has, right? And there's a lot more to this. I'm just, like I said, hopefully by now you're seeing that we are just getting started. All right. So many of the early adopters have already had enormous paydays from understanding and acting on crypto. And let me show you this thing right here. All right, I got to collapse this down some. Give me a second so you can see it. This is a chart of crypto value. And this is going to make everything come full circle. So remember we said 2008 or so, this was the beginning of crypto, and you can see that over here we have the value and then we have time. So this is Bitcoin price over time and the value. So we go along and then we see right here at 2013, we started to see a bump, right? And over the course of 2013, when Greece was going through that craziness, we saw a huge jump from, let's say that's roughly $100 to almost 1,000, right? So that was a 10x growth. And then things kind of been, going up, down, things kind of leveled off. And then in this past year, or 2016 going on, more and more countries and different uses and applications and benefits of Bitcoin have started to show the technology has gotten more adaptive. There's been more programmers involved in it. And in 2017, we went from about $800, $1,000 roughly, to today $7,000 per coin. And we're just getting started. They're predicting in 2018, Bitcoins will go for $10,000 to $25,000 a coin. So to give you an example of the power of this, in 2017, if I was smart enough to pay attention to this whole thing, and let's say invested 10 grand and bought 10 coins, if I bought 10 Bitcoins, by the end of the year today, I would have had a $80,000 to $100,000 return on my money, right? $10,000 into $80,000. And that's the crazy thing. There's people that do this. They bought around the $10, $12 mark here, and now they've become multimillionaires just from being an early adopter to the growing trend. And we're going to explain more of how that happened, because I'm sure right now you're still wondering, all right, Tommy, still a little confused. I've heard about different things, that you need a wallet. What's the best exchange? How do I mine for Bitcoin? How do I turn $12 into millions using ICOs like the 12-year-old Eric Fuhrman did to become a millionaire at 18? How do I avoid the scammers? Because with any new technology or any new piece of value, there are scams or things out there that can really catch you, and so much more, right? There's a lot else to be said, and this is just a great introduction to you to let you know that there is a history of currency being abused by governments and banks, and Bitcoin helps eliminate that. And on these coming videos, I'm going to make it more clear on how that is as we dive deeper. But right now, you might be somebody that already kind of knows all that stuff, and you're kind of like, I want to get going, all right? So if you're somebody that's ready to get into your crypto empire started, I am here to help you, because I wish that my friend would have told me about this sooner. So I'm trying to reach out to my list, my influencers, my people that are if you're on my list, then you're somebody that is open to wealth. You like wealth creation. You enjoy winning back your time freedom. You believe that technology can work for you, and you can then do your own thing on your own time. All right. So if that's you, you can email me at TommyGTips or contact@TommyGTips.com. And what I'd like for you to include, just put Bitcoin as the email name, and then give me your name, just a brief background on yourself. I mean, because I know you're human. I want to, get a little bit of sense of where you're at, what's driving you, kind of thing. What's going on right now in your life that you're like, hey, I've been watching this, or I've been, trying to do something. Why now, kind of thing. And then lastly, how much total, either per month, that you feel comfortable investing in the crypto, because you obviously need to take US dollars and turn them into Bitcoins to see this wealth grow, but there's ways that you can do that to maximize it, right? And like I've already said, if you would have invested in crypto, in Bitcoin, you would have had a crap ton of money for a very small investment, but it's going to be worth even more now. Would it be worth spending $10,000 right now if you knew within 10 years it could be $1 million? I mean, heck, what if you spend $100,000 right now if in 10 years it'd be 10 million? All right, that's game-changing money right there. All right, but people are actually doing this faster by using different forms of strategies and software and technologies to understand the cryptocurrency and do it in a way that's predictable, that has good return on your money. But at the end of the day, everything is a risk. You got to step out there. You got to show some faith. You got to show some forward thinking, especially right now. If you wait around for somebody else to solve everything, it might not be as much of a ROI, but it could be your best year ever. All right. And just so you know, if you email me and you're serious about getting your stuff started, have 500 to 5,000 to really get going. This is not money that you're going to be giving to me. This is going to be going to fund the resources that I recommend to you to help your empire grow in 2018. So I just ask that you don't waste my time by not actually, being pretty much on board with investing once you have all the answers, okay? If you're looking for more info, Google is your friend, but it can get kind of crazy looking out there. So just, I would say read every different perspective that you can. All right, there's people that want to say that it's all crap. There's people that want to say it's the saving grace of everything. Just, do your due diligence and use your own instincts to feel like, hey, I feel comfortable. There's a very big trend going on right now that pretty much says I need to pay attention to this. All right. So I'm here to eliminate the confusion and provide a path to maximize your rewards with minimum risk. And until next time, we'll leave it at that. And we'll dive into more of the action steps, kind of the relationships from old revenue streams versus the new crypto revenue streams, and to kind of get your infrastructure set up if this is something that you want to do. All right. Thanks, and I enjoyed sharing this with you.